Hey, welcome to the Get Offset podcast. I'm Emily,
I'm Andrew.
I'm Brian.
and today we're going to have a little conversation with our friend Brian, as you've just heard, from Spruce Effects.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on kind of short notice today, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. It's nice to have a guest who's also on the West Coast because time zones aren't really a thing.
And I'm always happy to have someone from California on the show because I spent most of my childhood there.
Yeah, California is pretty great in some ways.
In some, it has its perks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I feel like my cat knows when we start recording because she always seems to come up and beg for my attention when I'm sitting on the floor.
She knows you're interacting with others and wants you to pay attention.
That is classic jealousy.
Yeah.
Classic Carrie.
My cats suck. I wish they would try and cuddle with me more, but they don't.
Are they your partner's cats? Your wife's cats?
We got them together.
But which person do they love more?
Her, for sure.
Yeah, they're her cats.
Yeah. So I guess technically they're our cats, but really they're her cats.
Yeah, that's the boat I'm in. Our cat is our family cat, and I get flack whenever I say, "Hey, honey, can you feed your cat?" But the reality is it is her cat because that cat cuddles with her anytime she's home, and then when my wife is out, cat is not as nice to me. And yeah, definitely just waiting for Mama to come home.
Yeah.
Yeah, my cat likes Rick. She'll snuggle with him when I'm still in bed because he wakes up a lot earlier than I do for work. So sometimes she'll come downstairs in the morning and love on him a little bit. I think try to convince him to feed her, which doesn't always work. Play a little bit of laser, and then he leaves and she comes right back up to bed and waits for me to wake up.
Aw.
That's sweet. I think I'd feed my cats more frequently. So wouldn't that mean that they would recognize that I'm providing them, or are they too smart and they know that I'm just the smelly imposter?
I think that when you feed them, they think that you're weak.
Oh, that's
There's a
interesting.
plot twist.
Yeah.
Well, they never see you with anything that you kill.
Right. That's true.
Maybe that's what I'm missing. I need to kill something in order for my cat to respect me.
You just need to throw a dead rat at her. Is it a boy cat or a girl cat that you have, Andrew?
It's a she. Her name is Poppy.
Poppy.
That's cute. I have a funny cat gender story if we had a minute to talk about it.
We definitely have a minute to talk about that.
Okay.
That is a topic I'm excited about.
Okay. So our second cat, whose name is Bodhi, we got a message from a random person I knew in high school, and they said someone dumped a kitten in our backyard. We need a home for it. It's not doing well, and blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, you know what? I want a second cat. And I don't know what I was thinking. I probably drank too much, but we said we'd take the cat, and this person came and drove all the way from Sacramento, which is a couple hours away, and brought us this little kitten. And we were really excited. And she being my friend from high school, had taken the cat to get checked out at the vet. And the vet said it was a boy and it was about this old and it was, a little underweight and blah, 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 and whatever, it'll get better. And so we took the cat in and, sort of started raising it. And then when it was time to get neutered, we set the neuter appointment because it was really little when we got it. And this is, I don't know, maybe 5 months later. And we take the cat into the vet and for the neuter, and the vet tech comes in, is inspecting him and whatever, and then lifts up its tail and is like, huh, this is a boy cat? And I said, yeah, it's a male. And then she said, it's actually a female. And so in 1 second after the vet tech told me that, I had this massive sort of, I don't want to call it a flashback, but all of these images of reality were going through my head. Everything that I had known was untrue, and everything was crumbling, and I couldn't sort of wrap my head around it.
I like to call those Twilight Zone moments.
Yeah, it was like that, and then the vet tech didn't think it was a big deal, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we've been calling it he, and like we named it Bodie, and blah 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 blah, and she was like, it's no big deal. We're just doing a spay today, and I was like, okay, and that's it. That's my cat gender story.
You know, there was a warrior princess whose name was
Mulan?
no, it was something like Bodhi.
Moana.
No, no, no. It's I forget who exactly. I can send it to you later, Brian, but my neighbors every time they get a pet, they name it after a warrior princess.
Oh,
And this one was named after Boudica. Boudica.
ooh,
Sorry, Boudica.
ooh,
And there's I think there's a drunk history about Boudica.
ooh.
So, I mean, it's actually a feminine name.
That's
Boom.
funny because we named him slash her after Bodega Bay, which is where we got married. So it wasn't even like the name Bodie, as in like, oh, we were thinking about boy names. We name our animals after places that are important to us, and
Aw.
so we were just it was just short for Bodega. That's all.
Oh, that's cute. But
Yeah,
hey, now you don't have to feel so bad about it because she has a very badass um warrior princess name.
yeah.
If it makes you feel any better, our cat named Poppy. We named just because poppy is the state flower of California. We just thought it was kind of cute and sounded feminine enough. And I went to work the next day after we named Poppy. I was like, guys, look at my cute kitty. It's named Poppy. And my coworker, without missing a beat, went, "Ay, Poppy," and then that was just forever ruined for me. And so I'm still recovering from
I
that.
I think that's funny. I like that.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll say that, and I'll get a glare from my wife. And then I chuckle, and then she chuckles, and yeah.
As long as everyone's chuckling, I guess that's good.
Yeah, as long as it's not bad. I mean, it's like that kind of piece of advice like don't tell anyone what you're thinking of naming your kid because they're going to say something like, "Oh, just like so and so," and then it's going to be ruined for you.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Donald would be a great name. Oh,
Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Donald Duck. That's what
All
I
right.
was thinking.
Well, Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure. So should I start with age, sex, location?
ASL.
That's the best way to start any conversation.
Okay.
Do you really want to start with the age part?
I mean, I'm at an age where I don't feel like embarrassed to say my age, be it either because I'm too young or too old. I think I'm at like a medium age. So, but actually that might offend people who are young or older if I tell them how old I am.
We
Huh.
don't
I mean, I'm
care.
already offended.
I'm not.
Yeah. Okay.
You've earned that. You've earned that DGAF.
Yeah. I'm 34. I don't DGAF. I was going to say it. Are you glad I didn't?
I DGAF.
See what you did there.
Pretty good.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm located in California, obviously. I think actually most people probably knew all those things except my age. Now they probably think I just wanted to say how old I was.
No, that's actually what we brought you onto the podcast to talk about. Was purely about that. We're actually moving on to a podcast about ageist ethics.
Yeah, I run my business. Sorry, I won't go into that. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm in California, Bay Area. I grew up here, lived in California most of my life, but I was born on the East Coast, which some people don't seem to be able to wrap their heads around. And yeah, I run Spruce Effects with my wife. We're a little tiny company, and we make mostly dirt pedals. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. We do some pretty interesting stuff, I think. And we just released a new pedal called the Gale. It's a distortion fuzz. It's like a pretty unique circuit design. I mean, some people probably listen to it and be like, that sounds like every fuzz I've ever heard. And that's cool too, but it's pretty interesting as far as like what's happening inside of it.
No, I mean, I mean, this episode probably won't air until the new year, but today, as we're recording this, you just released that demo with Demos in the Dark,
Yeah,
and
that was by coincidence. Yeah.
yeah, and I kind of can't believe that all of those guitar parts were recorded with the same pedal.
Yeah. It's I think the coolest part, and I'll give a shout out to my friend John Snyder at Electronic Audio Experiments. He helped me design it. he like in the final revision, he gave me this. He actually said, "You should do this. It's really cool," and he was kind of experimenting with it on his end. Um, and it was to sort of tie this input gain stage, so like a pre-gain sort of situation like you've seen on other pedals, and just tie it to the same control as the main um, gain stage. And so, like, as you turn up the gain, it's not like a linear sort of like, oh, we're just getting a little bit more fuzzy or distorted in a predictable way. It, like, actually, you're making the input hotter, as well as the clipping section. And it does a really cool thing as you go up in the knob. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, that Demos in the Dark demo is like, I don't know. He just crushed it. And then the other two demos we did with J Leonard J and Collector Emitter, it's like you can't even tell it's the same pedal. And I'm really happy how they all turned out, which is kind of the point, I guess, of having multiple demos, is that you can do a bunch of different stuff with the pedal. So.
Yeah, it really shows off the whole range of what it can do. And
yeah,
I'm actually thinking maybe I need to get my hands on one of those, just because, partially because I love the artwork, partially because my grandma's name is Gale, and partially because it just sounds killer.
Oh,
and
thanks.
I like dynamic pedals that can get a whole range of sounds.
Yeah,
Something super boring.
cool. Yeah, the artwork was actually done by a Czech tattoo artist that I randomly connected with.
Oh, sick.
I was gonna say it looks
Yeah.
like an old sailor tattoo.
It's so funny. I built this. I did this pedal called the Yeti Machine, and it was a commission for a custom thing from a friend, and he was like, "I want a Yeti on this pedal," and I was like, "Okay, that's cool, I guess." And then I said, "I can't draw a Yeti. Just find a picture, and I'm gonna like find the artist who drew it, and then ask them for permission." And so he found this random Yeti. It was like on the first page of Google image searches, and he's like, "Yeah, this one's cool." So I hunted it down, and it was this woman in the Czech Republic. And I contacted her, and we had a language barrier, but she was cool with me using the artwork. And it was a tattoo that she had done. She did a tattoo series of like all the letters of the English alphabet, and Y was a Yeti. And it turned out it was just a really cool Yeti. And then I asked her if she did custom work, and she said sure. And I commissioned her to do the Gale graphics. And it was funny because we couldn't really communicate that easily, but I was like, I just want like a pirate ship getting jacked up in a storm. And I think I maybe used the F word there, but and then she was like, okay, cool. And then like a week later, she sends me this hand drawing on just like white paper through email, and I was like, this is perfect. And I had to mess with it in Illustrator and stuff, but I thought it turned out really cool.
Ugh, okay, now I have to buy it.
Yeah. Well, you just did and this is going to be irrelevant to listeners, but we're doing a giveaway for it with Demos in the Dark. I don't know if you saw that.
I just shared it on Instagram.
Sick. Did you tag 2 of your friends?
No, I don't feel like I should be eligible to win it.
Okay. Oh, I
I'm
see.
gonna buy it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I wanted I'm sorry, I'm just looking at your website right now. The tremolo fuzz sounds so up my alley. I'm so in love with tremolo.
Yeah, I did that with the Tone Mob. That was like, you know how Tone Mob does like little custom collaboration things.
Are they doing the Demogorgon, or they just did the Demogorgon?
Yeah, they did the Demogorgon. Yeah, and they did a bunch of other stuff. They did one with Tomcat that was really cool. They did like a muff that was like pretty cool new old stock components that they found. The Tremolo Fuzz was a lot of fun. We only made like 12 of them, I think.
Yeah. The website says 12.
Yeah, it was crazy small, and they sold out pretty fast. But I am talking to Blake about doing another version of it.
Oh man, I'd be so into that. Please do that.
Yeah. I actually sent him the prototype for the tremolo side like a month ago, and we're chatting it up.
Oh,
so
that was
stay tuned.
And I know I'm such a nerd for the steel guitar, but I feel like that would sound so cool with my steel guitar.
Yeah. We had a joke about like the fuzz side. I was like, I don't really have the bandwidth to design something totally new. Like, what do you want? And we were just talking, and we started this joke about like this idea of gain juice. Like like if you could drink gain, like the more gain you drink, like I don't know, the fuzzier you would become. And
but why would anyone drink gain when they have Tide Pods? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, and kids are juuling these days and Tide Podding and all kinds of stuff. Like I want them to get their head straight and just start drinking cane juice. That's what I
Yes,
want.
that's probably healthier.
Well, there's an energy drink called Amp. What if they just drink that instead?
They could.
Or-
That's definitely music related.
Remember
That's
when?
Mountain Dew, I think,
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I
I
think it's
think
the
so.
Mountain Dew
It's something along
company,
those lines.
which I
Yeah.
think is probably Pepsi, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't really remember a whole lot. Middle school was a long time ago.
Yeah. They didn't have AMP when I was in middle school because like I said at the beginning, I'm 34 years old.
Did they
You
have
got a whole decade on me.
Did they have Red Bull? Because that was the big. I mean, for me, high school thing was getting amped on
No.
Red Bull.
I don't think we had energy drinks. Like
No, those I think energy drinks started becoming a fad when I was probably middle school.
I don't know what year was that?
I would have started middle school in 2005.
Okay. I graduated high school in 2002.
Yep. So there it is.
So you just drank a lot of coffee in college.
Me, I don't know. I don't think I really started drinking caffeine until I was out of college.
Actually,
Oh wow.
same for me, to be honest. I was the person who, like, I had a boyfriend in college, and he would always complain about how he had to stay up all night, and then he was groggy in the morning. I said, "Why don't you just do what I do?" And he's like, "What do
Yeah.
you do?" I'm like, "I go to bed at 10. I wake up early, and I do my homework when I'm rested." And this is also the same person who broke up with me because I was smarter than him. That's one of the reasons he gave.
Yikes.
He was threatened by your intelligence.
Well, he said, I think the thing was like the roundabout way of him saying that was his course load was going to be very significant. And I pointed out it was the same course load that I was taking. And he said, it's just easier for you, which I kind of took as a compliment, but also he was breaking up with me. So I cried also.
Huh.
You know what? Best thing that ever happened to me.
I was gonna say it sounds like you got the better end of the deal there.
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband right now, my husband for the rest of my life is kind of the best human I've ever
Aw.
met. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Would he complain about his course load being more difficult, even though it was the same as yours?
probably.
Oh,
But he wouldn't break up with me
Alrighty then.
for it.
right. Yeah, that's what marriage is. It's
He's a developer type. We went to college together too, my husband and I, and we had the same major. I mean, I don't know, Rick, were you on the dean's list? He was also on the dean's list, so he's a pretty smart guy.
so you have to be on the dean's list to be smart.
Well, I don't know.
If that's the case, then I'm out of the running here.
Yeah, I'm dumb. If that's, I might just be the stupidest person on planet Earth.
I mean, I was in the honors program and I graduated magna cum laude, so
Is that how you say that?
I think so.
Oh,
It's I don't think it's Lottie. I know a lot of people say Lottie, but I don't think it
Yeah.
is. But I think it's kind of like do you say Porsche or Portia?
I don't know. I don't say that word very often. So Porsche.
Yeah.
Porsche.
Yeah,
I think I
say
say
Porsche.
Porsche.
I say Porsche.
Can I can say Toyota pretty well. I'm familiar with that one.
I can say
Yeah.
Ford, which is what I drive.
Yeah,
Actually, yeah, I call it Dora, our Explorer.
Aw.
like the movie, like the children's movie,
I think it's a television show.
Dora the Explorer. Oh, that's right. I was thinking of Lilo and Stitch. Sorry.
That is a movie. That's a Disney
Yeah.
movie, and Dora
It
is a
is, yeah.
Nickelodeon show.
Right.
I have officially lost track.
Fellas, we are 20 minutes in and we haven't thanked our sponsor, and we have a new sponsor, and I wanted Andrew to talk about our sponsor.
Yeah, I would love to. Our sponsor for today's show goes by the name Phil Sakanashi. Dude is a legend. I've been friends with him for golly. I've known him since 2012, so going on 6 years now. He's a great dude. He runs a small company called Tasty Cables. They are tasty indeed. The rumors are true. He does have great taste in tacos as well. But seriously, especially if you're in Southern California, he does cables. He does custom board cabling. He does name a cable. He does it, and he does it well. I don't know. I know few people who have the kind of work ethic that he does. He doesn't half-ass anything. So I really could not recommend him enough. I'm a little biased because I've been friends with him for a while, and he's just a great dude, and he's been so kind to me and my family through a lot of ups and downs. But I mean, I'm also saying this just completely as unbiased as I can. He does do great stuff, and it's great prices. So check him out. Hit him up on his Instagram. Give him a follow. Give him some love.
And what
He's
was that
great.
name again?
Tasty Cables.
Tasty Cables?
Tasty Cables.
Tasty Cables.
They have a really cool mug.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna buy some cables and also see if I can get one of these mugs.
We'll talk to Andrew first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrew, can I get a mug? I want a mug. I don't have enough mugs. I have 100.
I'll hit up Phil. I'll shoot him a text message.
Cool.
Well, hey, let's get into today's topic now that we're a full 20 minutes into the episode.
21 minutes. Thank you very much.
21 and 19, 20, 21, 22 seconds. All right, so we're going to talk about a topic today, and Emily and I were talking about it earlier this week, and we started to get into it, but we didn't get into it entirely. We just have vague ideas of how we feel about this subject, but that came up with the subject came to be when we talked about this whole idea that musicians get upset with people who are successful and immediately say that they're a sellout. And I think we were like, well, what exactly does selling out mean? Is selling out even a thing? Do we see that in the gear industry? And oh, absolutely. I've seen so many people say, oh yeah, so-and-so from this company is a total sellout. Or like, what does that mean?
Yeah, and Andrew, when you first mentioned this, I think my response was, I have strong feelings about this. And I think they weren't what you were expecting from someone who worked at Beggars Group, Matador Records, has worked with indie labels, worked with indie festivals, and independent artists. And yeah, so I don't think that my thoughts are really what you would have expected.
Yeah, it definitely took me aback a little bit, and I don't know if I agree with you, but I also think we might agree more than I think. I don't know. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a great conversation. We're going to dig into this. Brian is also going to join us for
Yes.
as co-host for the section. We're going to have a conversation, the three of us, and really get into this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're talking about musicians, this coming from me, who's just on the south end of 30, and I know a lot of musicians, and I mean, when I was 15, if a musician I liked was on a commercial, I would have totally thought they were a sellout. Like, oh no, oh, this is awful. But now
Taylor
it's so,
Swift.
you know what? I love Taylor Swift. Let's save that for another day. But
I actually agree with you, but we'll
it's like,
save that for
I
another
don't
day.
think people remember that like Ryan Adams was in a commercial for like the Gap in 2002 or 3, like right after Gold came out.
Barf.
He was doing something with I think it was Willie Nelson. They were doing a Hank Williams song, and you know I loved Ryan Adams, so I was excited to see him on television. And this was coming from like my self-defined punk aesthetic. And I think kind of from that point on, I felt like as an artist, you need to do what you need to do to enable yourself to create more art, and sometimes that's doing commercials. Like you got to get paid, and otherwise, no one's going to hear your stuff. You're not going to be able to continue to keep making it, and that's sort of the base of what I believe is that as an artist, um, do the commercials, do the things if it's what enables you to continue to make your art. But I will say, um, when you start pandering, that's when I just lose interest. And I don't even know if I consider it selling out, but I do consider it uninteresting, if that makes sense.
All right, Brian, I'm gonna throw you to the wolves, and I want to hear what you have to say before I give my impassioned speech on what I think is selling out and who is doing it.
Sure. I actually have a question. So if you're thinking about like levels of fame and notoriety, like so Ryan Adams, for example, like the fact that the Gap approached him means that he's already got like he had an existing sort of like pull or draw or influence. So like how I'm asking Emily this question, and this is probably not going to make any sense, so I apologize. But like why did he have to do that in order to keep creating the art that he was making? Right? Like, was it, he looked at his bank account and said, if I don't do this, X dollars paying Gap commercial, I'm not going to be able to finance my next record because the last one didn't sell well? Or was it more like, hey, Gap approached me, I've got like kind of a recognized name now, and they want me to do this thing, and I can make a fair bit amount of money doing it, and like, whatever, I don't really care. So I'm curious, like,
Is it more like, what's the line between I need to put food on the table and be able to fund my next project, and hey, I'm famous now and I'm worth some money. I'm going to take as much money as I can get out of this. Is it
Well,
kind of like that?
I
well,
think
it's like the chicken and the egg.
let
That's all.
let me talk.
Yes, please.
So in 2002 or whenever this came out, Ryan had like some success with gold, but he was still
Mm-hmm.
very much considered a new artist. It wasn't so much like, oh, here's this person who has this pool, so much as I think the whole campaign was pairing an established artist with a newer artist. So I think Willie Nelson was the other person in this ad, and Willie
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nelson was the one with the pool in this
Oh, so
case.
Willie Nelson is a sellout.
Willie Nelson could do whatever he wants, Andrew.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard me. And we don't record the pre-show on this, but when I was getting up to take to get pour my gin and elderflower tonic drink with a slice of lemon,
Mm.
I was talking to my husband, and I was like, "Did Willie Nelson write this terrible song that he sings sometimes?" Like, Willie Nelson sings some bad songs. He writes some great ones, but he sings some bad ones. So I mean, but Willie Nelson is a legend. I feel like once you reach that status of like Willie Nelson or Johnny Cash, and I love classic country, Waylon Jennings, Merle Haggard, Loretta Lynn, like I think you're past
Towns
selling
Van
out.
Zandt.
Towns, well, rest in peace.
He never sold out.
No, he
He
didn't.
died.
He died too young.
Yeah.
His estate might have sold out, but I don't think you can sell out at that level either because you are you're legend.
Yeah.
I Am Legend.
Great movie.
The
Great.
comic was
like-
better.
It just ruined that Bob Marley song for me, though.
Which Bob Marley song?
Don't worry. Okay, edit that out, please.
No, I'm not gonna edit that out.
Keep it.
Keep going.
Yeah. No, I actually like to sing that song to my kids sometimes, and I don't know if I could ever watch I Am Legend again because Will Smith, like, spoiler alert, but the movie's been out for so long, I really don't care. He like sings that to his dog all the time, and then he has to like kill his dog at some point in the movie, and it's just like, oh my God, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a heartbreaker.
But let's hear Brian's perspective on
Yes.
selling out.
Yeah, that's let's see. Okay. This is funny because I don't know if you all use Spotify, but like they just, they do their year end like totals and like have this cool little dashboard where you can see like who your top artists were. And I actually like ran this morning just listening to like my Spotify generated like most frequently listened to artists, and it was like, oh, every song was great and it was cool. But I noticed on social media this week a lot of like artists were posting their like artist dashboard, and it tells them how many plays they had total, how many like hours of listening, and how many different countries. And I was like scrolling through like these like, medium well known to like very well known artists, and they were like, oh yeah, I had 80 million plays. And then I was like thinking, oh, how much does Spotify pay out for like a play? And then so I started Googling, and I'm sure listeners or you guys have been interested in this topic, but it's like not very much, obviously.
It's like a third of a penny per play, I think.
Yeah, like $0.0038 is like the average. And there are all these memes being posted of like F Spotify, they made so much money and they're screwing over the artists and blah blah blah. And I don't know. I was thinking a lot about this sort of idea of like, if you're gonna do art as your work, and like you should be paid for it, but at the same time, I sort of feel like don't bite the hand that feeds. Like if you're getting paid not very much from Spotify, but they're, generating 10 million plays. That's not like an income to live off of necessarily. Um, that's like just that should be a component of how you're leveraging your art to make a living. And I think like if you make the choice to do art for a living, there's also like this business component. You're working for yourself. And I'm not sure that I know like at what point do you become a sellout? Like I
That's
think
fair.
I think as an art consumer, it's really easy to like say, "Oh, that band sold out at that album because like it didn't resonate with me anymore." But at the same time, like there's this business side. Like you would have never even heard of that artist if there had not been like a way for you to consume their art, unless you were like
Right.
hyper vigilant, I guess. Like there are some people who are like finding and discovering the newest coolest like garage bands who eventually make it or maybe not, that but are doing really cool stuff. But like for the average consumer of music, it's sort of like I'm thankful that Spotify exists because I'm a huge fan of like 5 new bands this year, just because like they had some, like nerdy programmer like create this algorithm to like tell me what I might like based off of what I've listened to
Right.
already.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's such a cool and wonderful and beautiful thing that used to be done by the radio, and people listen to the radio at work and not just in the car. Um, and I have a love hate relationship with Spotify as someone who has music on Spotify. It doesn't pay like almost anything, but
Yeah,
neither did labels really.
right.
I think that if you were like a successful artist, you would get maybe 10 cents per every album sold and nothing on subsequent listens. Um,
Yeah.
I just feel like if you are the kind of person who is one to accuse or believe in the idea of selling out, then you need to find those artists you love. You need to buy their records and not just listen on Spotify. You need to buy their merch. You need to go to their shows. You need to shout them out. You need to buy you need to buy their CDs and gift them. I'm sorry, do people still buy CDs?
I do, but
I
I get a
don't.
lot of flack for it.
I I don't buy CDs because I don't really have a way to play them outside of my
Same.
car.
I don't even have a CD player in my car.
I've
I
got
don't own a CD player. All my computers don't have a disc.
My hi
Um,
I'm sorry, I'm dating myself. My hi-fi has a CD player, but we mostly use the hi-fi for the turntable.
Same.
Yeah, and I don't have I actually my work computer has a CD-ROM drive. My
Whoa.
personal computer doesn't. You know what? I'm I thought I'd be really excited to have that CD-ROM drive, but I've never actually put a disc in it. However, I do accidentally open it every time I pick it up, which makes me so mad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But I
hilarious.
have my car is like a 2008, so it has a CD player.
Yeah.
Your car doesn't have a CD player? Is it old or is it new, Brian?
No, it's new.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
new.
New cars don't have
Yeah.
CD players? This is kind of
I
blowing my
guess mine
mind.
doesn't. I don't know. It's like it doesn't have it.
But it's not a Porsche.
No, I don't own a Porsche.
Is it
No.
a Ford? Is it a Toyota? Is it another car name that we can pronounce?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. You
Okay,
can pronounce it. It's
fantastic.
an American car. I'll leave it at that.
mm,
Um so in this conversation I'm thinking now like I'm a huge Dave Bazan fan. I don't know if you guys are. Um
Oh yeah,
you're not. Okay.
he played Timber the other year. He played the festival I work for
Awesome.
the other year.
Yeah. So he's like if I were to take a hard stance on this whole selling out thing, I think I would use him as like inspiration to inform like my idea of it's possible to like eke out a living and without selling out, because I think he's done a really amazing job of like balancing the sort of brand but also like just doing whatever the f he wants like as far as like his art goes. um and he's evolved and done tons of different stuff, and some of it's worked great like as far as like making money, and some of it hasn't, but it's still like he tours constantly and sacrifices constantly to like keep going, whereas I think a lot of medium famous artists like him like peter out because they didn't hit it big, you know, and that's like kind of maybe soul crushing. I don't know. I've never been like a musician.
Right.
Like
I
that.
mean, if you're working so hard and that's your goal and you don't attain that, like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's definitely, all right, boys, it's time to pack it up.
Right. Or like, I don't really want to put in the effort to like take time off touring to write the new record, and then that's your last tour because you're not making new stuff.
Yep.
And for him, it's like he's evolved and like done all of these different cool things, but like sort of maintained his level of success without compromising what he set out to do originally, which I'm assuming, I don't know, is like, you know, make the music that he wants to make. And I think that's like a pretty cool example of not selling out, but maybe not even having the opportunity to sell out, but also like finding that balance of I can do this for my life and my work.
No, I definitely hear that. I think, all right, so there's definitely parallels if we tie this outside, move from music world into the gear community.
Yeah.
There's definitely companies that fit that kind of vibe. I would say Analog Man would fit that vibe. I would say Bondi Effects fits that vibe. I think you fit that vibe of from what I can pick up on. But before I get there, I'm gonna rock the boat a little bit here. I gonna say sorry, not sorry, but I'm gonna come at this from a slightly different angle here, if that's all right.
Sure.
Any objections?
No, I'm going to start cursing soon though. So just get ready. If you're going to
Okay.
rock the boat, I'm going to rock the boat.
I will
Ooh,
too.
let's do it.
Cool.
Woo! All right,
I just sent my wife a text message to, I said, bring me another beer. And then I realized how bad that sounded.
At least say please.
Bring me a beer and
didn't
make
have
me a
time.
sandwich.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Eat her down.
I won't say that. All right. Sorry. Continue.
All right. I think there is a thing, such a thing as selling out. And the definition of that, I'm going to go with if you're compromising your values that you initially stuck to, unless you're like, of course, it's okay to evolve with your values. But if you're compromising your values for the paycheck, I think that's when we start to get into the ballpark of selling out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the line there is a little bit gray. I'm not going to pretend like it's cut and paste or cut and dry. But for a little bit of context, me, I grew up listening to Seattle grunge, and of course, there's all the stuff like Nirvana hating on the record label, so on and so forth. But then when I was in middle school, 2007, Sarah Bareilles dropped the song called "Love Song." Anybody familiar?
I am, and I know
Yes.
the genesis of that song, and I would love to yap about it forever.
So we could yap it about it forever, but just real briefly, my basic understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like the basis of how I view record labels. Is Sarah Bareilles is told by the record label, I need you to write a love song. I need it to be this, this, and that. You need to pump it out because we're paying you to do so. And this isn't about your artistic expression. This is about you fulfilling your artistic duty. And so she wrote the song that says, I'm not going to write you a love song just because you asked for it, just because you need it. And it's just the super sassy clap back to the record label. Am I completely off base here? Is my whole life a lie?
You're fully right. That song's about, I think, specifically Amanda Ghost, and as was the song King of Everything. She was a very, very rude record producer. She also co-wrote "You're Beautiful" by James Blunt, so feel free to hate on her.
Oof.
Well, no, I'm not hating on Sarah Bareilles whatsoever.
No. Amanda Ghost did. Sarah Bareilles is fantastic.
I'm reading the Sarah Bareilles wiki page right now, and it's not super informative, but it does hint at the tension that we're talking about.
Yeah, Amanda Ghost was not a very pleasant person to have as an employer, apparently. But I think she ran Epic Records. Yeah, but she wasn't very I don't know, she was kind of hardline. You kind of wonder how she would have fared if she had been a man, but also it doesn't excuse rude behavior.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I started to learn what it was like to sell out and what it looks like for someone to say, you know, no, I'm not going to sell out. I'm going to write this song. It's basically just a big middle finger to you and what you want to be. I'm going to do my own thing, my own artistic creation. And when I was a kid, I thought that was the coolest thing. And I don't know, that's something that I've always respected, given my understanding of the situation and what all that entailed.
I mean, that's very cool.
Can I rock the boat?
Rock the boat.
Rocket.
Gale,
Okay.
rock the boat.
So I don't know nearly as much about this song as you guys do, but I have a question that might pose some interesting ideas. So, do you think that Epic Records would have released this song or even allowed it to be recorded if they had not thought that whatever the resulting fanfare or buzz about it would have benefited the label?
Oh, certainly not. I mean, well, they don't really have so much say on like what you record. I mean, you kind of pitch them an idea and
Right.
then you do it, but I obviously they heard something catchy as hell in that song that I'm sure Sarah Bareilles intended that song to be catchy as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still her art, it was still so great, and I think that the story behind it, I don't remember that story from when the song was released. I just remember hearing about it later.
Sure. Same. But I just think it's interesting that like it's, a song standing up to the label, but at the same time the label put it out and made S loads of money off of it. Like
Oh yeah. Well,
it's
and
a
I think it's completely fair to say that a lot of that kind of stuff, or like the drama that we see in popular music, it could definitely be manufactured for the record sales and whatnot. And I don't know.
I mean, that happens in everything that's entertainment, manufactured drama. You think about,
yeah.
I don't know if you fellows watch NASCAR. I used to work in Formula One, and the drama and that is so manufactured. It's incredible, but people eat into it because the only thing that's more exciting than watching cars go, 300 kilometers an hour, is watching
I
cars
don't
go
know how
through.
fast that is.
It's 180 miles per hour, I think. Um, was I don't I'll quote myself on that, I guess. Um,
Sounds about right.
Watching cars go really fast. The only thing more exciting than watching cars go really fast is watching cars go really fast and imagining that these dudes hate each other
It's like WWE, but
faster.
all right. So let's all right. So we're here. We're gonna take this conversation. We're gonna start moving into the gear community. So as it stands, Emily thinks that there's no such thing as selling out. Brian has just asked a lot of questions, and I think that there is such a thing as selling out. And I've given a brief definition of what that looks like, but whether or not this applies in the gear community, we're about to get into. And since I went last for the first round, I would love to go first this time
But
and to
but
follow my
Andrew,
train of
first
thought.
can I ask you? We
Yeah.
disagree. Is this manufactured drama?
I don't think that's the point
I'm
here.
just
It
kidding. I'm
it
so
very
sorry.
well could be, and that's fine. My point in telling the story was just simply saying this is where I'm coming from. This is where I got this idea of this is selling out and feeling all gung ho, and that fueled my punk phase of like, yeah, screw the man.
I
So
think they say "damn the man" in Empire Records, right? Sorry.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
probably.
I think
Um,
if you guys are really manufacturing drama, you need to be yelling more.
I mean, or we could just drink a little bit more and chat.
Yeah.
That could work
I'm
too.
not that kind of drinker.
You
I'm
don't get
more of a pub kind of guy, not a club kind of guy.
Fair. I'm more of a
That's I
drink at
like
home
that.
kind of gal or guy.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Andrew. Let's talk about the gear
No, that's
industry
totally
and
all right.
selling out.
Yeah, gear industry.
All right, so this is we're like 40 minutes into this episode, and now we're finally getting to the good stuff. Here's why this is important to the gear industry and why I think this conversation needs to be had is because I hear a lot of folks complain about certain companies who get to a certain size and say, "Man, you know what? They just sold out, or it's just a gimmick, or it's all just a marketing scheme, and their stuff kind of sucks." And whether or not their gear is quality or not, I don't think really is the point here. But it's more of are they doing this because they love the industry, they love the music and creating the music and the pedals, or are they doing this just to get rich? And what point is that selling out? And what point is it not? And so someone might say a small company that stays boutique, that only hires a couple of people and they only put out small batches, that is the heart of the pedal industry is folks like that. And then the larger companies who do have like a LLC licensing and they're big and they license out to or their vendors are Guitar Center, Sweetwater, Chicago Music Exchange. Then they've completely sold out. They're just doing it for the money. And maybe I'm the only one that's heard that, but I've heard people say this kind of stuff. I'm like, well, okay, well, is that really selling out to want to be successful in your business? And how do we feel about that with the gear industry? And not that I want to like quash or put any blanket statements on the gear industry necessarily, because every company is a little bit different. But I think that's a mindset I've heard quite a bit, and I think it's worth us discussing. I think having Brian on the show creates a great dynamic for us
Yeah.
to talk about
Yeah.
that.
I mean, my instinct is who starts a business to not make money? And with that, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Yeah. So maybe, yeah, I can offer some perspective. I think that I don't know of another industry like maybe guitar pedals, or we could just say gear in general, like, or boutique gear, or like handmade music
Amps,
related.
guitars.
Yeah, amps, guitars, cables, accessories, whatever. I don't know of another community that is like as driven by DIY, um, in the sense that a lot of the companies that we know did not like start in a boardroom. Like they started in a garage where someone was interested in learning more about, like, oh, what's a low capacitance cable do? Oh, I think that's cool. I want to make my own. Oh, cool. That wasn't that hard. Okay, now I'm going to like start to think about building cables for my friends. And then, oh, I got my first order. And then now all of a sudden I have this cable company, or same thing for guitar pedals. I think a lot of it starts that way from this like general, a lot of the people in it have this very similar personality trait, which is like the thirst to know how to do something and make something, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
maker culture, I guess. And they're not starting out like, oh, I worked in a restaurant and I want to start the new like Michelin star rated restaurant. So now I need like a business plan and investors and blah, blah, blah. It's like literally, I was modding pedals for my friend, and now all of a sudden I have a website, and now all of a sudden, like, I probably have to pay taxes, and now all of a sudden, like, this artist approached me about sponsorship, and it like sort of grows in that way.
Right. It's a lot more organic, to use a
Yeah.
buzzword.
Yeah, sure. But I do think that like there's this ethical position that can inform the direction of whether or not the company could be quote unquote selling out, where it becomes more about, we need to sell 10,000 units of this product. I don't care what the product is, but we need to make a product that sells that many. And then we might take a few shortcuts, or we might take a peek at the circuit that we heard about from so and so, and maybe we might copy it, or like that kind of thing. And that's where the sort of like, to me, the difference is a lot of these smaller companies, they're just not good at business, and they're focused purely on the product and the love of building stuff. And
Which
then
there's nothing wrong with that, but if their goal is to progress, they need to get that business acumen
But
going.
that's not natural.
sure,
And a lot of people, if you have, if your experience is in building pedals and your experience isn't in marketing, but if you come from a
yeah,
business background, then it's kind of the opposite, where first you're a business and then you're a gear person. Or you can get to that point where you grow so quickly that then you need to start taking shortcuts because you want to make sure the people you hired still have jobs in a month and a half.
yeah,
Right. I mean, not everybody's like, yeah, I'm gonna like maybe scale up this business and see what happens. The next thing you know, like you've got a bunch of employees that you haven't paid in a couple months and you haven't fulfilled a bunch of orders, and then you're trying to take a whole bunch of money for new orders, even though you haven't fulfilled old ones. And the next thing you know,
Oh man, that hits way too
well,
close to
yeah,
home.
too close to
Oh
home.
I
my
Too
know that you're
soon.
gosh.
talking about
We'll,
Andrew.
we'll maybe we'll go
I
there
mean,
another
gosh,
time.
if we can ever name names, but no, probably not. But I think there's this idea. But I think about the gear industry is a little bit like the entertainment industry in general, which is where my background is in entertainment. Sometimes things blow up so quickly, and you have no like little control over the hype that people build around your, for lack of a better word, brand. I mean, you think about people like 1981 or Quiet Theory. I mean, just not because of anything else. Like I think they're doing it right, where they're making a certain amount of things, they're selling a certain amount of things, they're listing things as sold out. Like I feel like they're doing their best to not do this thing that other brands have done. Was who cares if we haven't made it yet? Sell it first, if that makes sense.
Sell the idea of it.
Well, sell it's like sell like the promise that we're going to deliver something before we've made it. I mean, I know that when I finally got a Quiet Theory, the Prelude pedal, it was just as consistent. We're going to send an email to our email list. There's going to be a certain number available, and that's all we're going to sell, and then they're going to be sold out. But they weren't like just opening the floodgates, allowing people to just give them unlimited amounts of money, knowing that they couldn't fulfill the orders that they were allowing people to place.
Well, and I think that's just bad business ethics. I don't think that's necessarily selling out.
I agree. But what I would think would be selling out would be for a brand to start using, say, scantily clad women in their ads.
Yes, that I think that's a compromise on values and compromising the values of the gear industry.
Yeah, I guess the differentiator for me is will the company do anything to sell or make the next thing? And
how desperate are they?
Yeah, and not even desperate, but maybe that's just a part of the business model. It's just sort of ingrained in the way that they look at like developing new products. Like it's not about, oh, I had this cool idea. It's, oh, I saw this cool thing. We have to clone it before it gets popular. Like so we can sell 10,000, right? Rather than
right before the DIY guy gets to sell however many
exactly
DIY kits.
And let's talk about cloning. I know that's
Sure.
I mean, everyone's talked about cloning. It's a hot topic. But I mean, Andrew and I don't have a ton of experience in this whole world of, for lack of a better word, electronics.
Yeah.
I've briefly dabbled, but I couldn't build a range master from
No, I
scratch
mean
if
I
I
could
wanted to.
solder. I can cut
That's
up
my
one of
favorite
those little
circuit.
like flesh colored boards. Like, but I don't understand it. But Brian, you understand it, so we'd love to hear your perspective on
Not
it.
really, but I'll try.
I know what a breadboard is. Does that make me qualified?
Yeah. I have
Yay.
breadboards in my kitchen too.
I have them in my kitchen, but they're different
Oh.
kind of
Sorry.
breadboards.
See, you started with the puns, and now I'm gonna have to start making tree puns just to kind of spruce up the atmosphere a
Guys,
little
no
bit.
pun. Come
Yes,
on,
please.
pun free zone.
Okay, no puns. Sorry,
Next
sorry.
5 minutes, no puns.
Okay.
I make no promises.
Yeah.
Okay, dads.
That's funny. Yeah, so I don't know. Cloning is a complicated but also very simple thing, I think, for a lot of people. And the difference between, in my opinion at least, like the difference between like truly understanding the nuance, like in this world, it really does come down to like, do you actually know like what that circuit is? And if you don't, then it's very simple and easy to say either, oh, hey, cloning sucks, I hate it, or hey, it's just another clone, who cares, everybody does it, I don't actually really know why it's a big deal. And explaining why it's a big deal sometimes from like builders' perspectives is like really difficult. So like, I don't know. I mean, and we kind of talked about this before we started recording, but the idea of like the big muff, right? Like, should the big muff never be cloned? Like, is it unethical to clone a big muff or improve upon a big muff and sell it? And like, that's a question I don't know the answer to. And some people say, well, it's fine because, you know, it's such an old circuit and the new ones don't really resemble the vintage ones, and the vintage ones are $800. So I'd rather pay $250 to a boutique builder and get essentially the same thing, but you're still stealing from Electro Harmonics. Like, what does Mike Matthews have to say about that? Like, who's thinking about taking, you know, food off their table? And that's a really sort of interesting, nuanced position. And if you don't understand like the differences in the big muff circuits or what's currently available, you might just say, hey, they all kind of sound the same. It's kind of messed up that this builder is making something that sounds the same based on this other thing. And then there's this whole concept of like the legality of it, right? This is like, if you've ever read the forums, there's always like an armchair lawyer that pops in and is like, oh, you can't patent electronic schematics. Like no one owns electricity, or no
Therefore,
one,
everything's fair game, right?
right? And then it's like, okay, well, you don't even have a discussion then, right? Like I can take that schematic drawing, redo it on my own computer or notepad, and then it's
Yeah,
mine.
Brian, tell me more about that Gale.
Yeah, what about it?
I mean, when you
Um,
think about patents, it's insane to me that, and I'm gonna name names, that Pedal Train can patent their pedal board design, but that you can't
Yeah.
patent a PCB.
Well, you can patent. Well, your PCBs are protected under like artistic copyright. So like
as
if
far
you
as like the layout.
Yeah,
right, exactly. So if you look at the
but the
layout,
schematic you
like
can't.
if right, so the technical drawing, the schematic of like what components are where, and because yeah, you cannot.
So if one person looks at one schematic, one PCB, where for example somebody used two resistors of an equal amount or whatever, and it was almost an error that someone could go through, do almost the same thing, and just instead of doing the two identical of a separate amount, just do the double, and it would be fair game. Is that what is? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but even further, it's fair game to go find Mike Matthews' original Big Muff drawing, or he actually co-designed it. Find that and then whip it up on my like CAD program, and then I own that now.
So, like in theory, Brian, I could purchase a Gale from you.
Yes.
I'm not saying that I would ever do this because
Yeah.
Because we
I'm
don't know how.
I'm lazy.
Well, you wouldn't be
Oh
able to find the transistors that make it sound that good. So,
They're magic.
well,
well, you could, I guess. Actually, you could. That was a bold statement.
I couldn't contest it if I wanted to, but let's just say in theory, I bought it from you. I opened it up. It's not gooped up, and I can, let's say in a fantastical sense here, that I'm smart enough to be able to sort out the schematic on my own, and I recreate it, and I build 10,000 of them, and I sell them for less than what you're selling. I beat you in business theoretically, and I just name it something else and do my own artwork. There's nothing you could do to me legally. Is that right?
Yeah. In this case, no. And if you have like a novel, patentable sort of concept, you can like there are those in the electronics world. They're few and far between. But like, I'll give you a vintage example. Like Fender and Marshall, they went into the tube manuals from like General Electric. They have a tube. They sell a vacuum tube, and they also produce these manuals in which electronics designers and engineers could build like basic circuits off of the tube to understand how they worked. Like a lot of their products came from this, this tube manual. And so like essentially, Leo Fender didn't necessarily like invent the 5F1 champ, but General Electric gave them the sort of building blocks on how the tube behaves, and they made it work for the product that they were releasing. And this is like the 1950s. This is like forever ago, and that was totally legal because it was a published schematic for educational purposes or for reference, and they essentially built a really cool guitar amp off of that, and turns out it sounded good, and now they're worth $1,000 or
But
whatever.
what if you, in today's day and age, were to put some sort of DIY educational schematic for a pedal on the internet, with the express note that this cannot be used for commercial purposes? For example, I use a tool, a video editor, and as I was playing with it, it said you can't use these are for personal use only. If you want to do a video for profit, you need to purchase the larger package. Um, what if you were a person who saw these free schematics for educational purposes, not for profit, on the internet, and then use those to create a pedal that you then did sell for profit? What's the legality of that, as far as you know, other than this? It's just a rude thing to do.
I guess I would say that you it's only illegal if you get sued or you get caught. So that, like, the example you gave actually does happen and has happened. And like, if the original person or group does not pursue action, then it's sort of like F you. Like, there's nothing you can really do about it unless you choose to pursue it. And then that's when that, like, so think about it like this: if you got a huge company that says, "Hey, I like that DIY circuit," for the example you're giving, I'm gonna steal it and I'm gonna turn it into a product, and I'm maybe I'm a $10 million a year revenue company, guitar pedal company, and you're basically putting a DIY website in a position of saying, am I willing to hire a lawyer to pursue this action? And I've never been in this position, but I would say 99.99% of the time they're not going to, one, be able to afford it, or two, like, want to interrupt what their sort of objective or goal is, which is to, like, further the knowledge and understanding of guitar pedals to the public for free, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to design a new distortion, or I'm going to go have a $5,000 meeting with a lawyer for an entire day
just to get started with the
just to get
lawsuit.
started, right?
Yeah, I mean that's
like, forget it.
Step 1.0.
Right. And so, and then that doesn't even include this, like, nuance, which I feel passionately about, where, like, consumers of gear don't know, and oftentimes explicitly say they don't care what it is, as long as it sounds good.
If it sounds good, if it's got a resale value so they can make their money back later, that kind of stuff.
And it's a fair point, but it's also ignorance is bliss.
I've literally sold pedals off my board when I found out that companies do this, and I get that it's really in the weeds for the average consumer who doesn't understand, like, how these things work, and two, maybe borderline can't afford it or just doesn't care. I mean, do you not
And we're also
care?
talking about a consumer base, a lot of whom which buy the clothes that they're wearing are made unethically.
The clothes that they're wearing are made unethically. Like, they don't pay for the music that they listen to. Like, yeah, it's just this long laundry list of, like, apathy.
Yeah. I will say, though, in like, I don't know, gleaming light of inspiration or hope, that the gear industry is very tight knit, and even if you're a small person, small fish in the sea, like we are, like, access to the engaged and, like, giving and positive companies is easy access. Like, there are companies that are big names that are, like, doing really cool new things and are really supportive of other people that I can, like, Facebook chat or, like, text or whatever, just because they have that sort of, like, collaborative mentality. And then sort of like the sort of black sheep that we're, sort of alluding to, these unsavory sort of, maybe these are the sellouts we're talking about. Like, they don't participate in those communities anymore. There is this sort of layer of insulation between them and the place in which they came, which is, for most of us, it's the DIY community. And so it's not hard to, like, see or pick out which those companies are, but they're not accessible to the starting out fuzz builder who wants to learn more, because they don't care about that anymore. They care about, what's going to make the next dollar.
And I think at that point, I think we've finally struck the note of what selling out is in this industry. I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't know. I could be totally wrong, and that's something I'm going to say a lot throughout this podcast. Is I could be completely wrong. And listeners, if you disagree with me, please put me on blast. Please tell me I'm wrong. I'm not above being called out.
Join our Facebook group and yell at Andrew.
Yes,
do that,
please.
I'm gonna do it. I'm actually on the. I'm going on.
Oh,
right
you
now.
are. You're gonna yell at Andrew.
I'm logging in.
So, could someone for me please summarize what selling out is in the gear industry?
I'm not even sure.
Okay, well, so here's going to be one of my few moments in the show where I'm going to get a little smug, and I'm going to try and tie it back to something I said before, is the idea of compromising on the principles that you maybe started out with, or kind of just a general set of acceptable moral principles, and you're going back on those or ignoring them for the sake of the dollar.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then like in the case of my perspective of like the nitty gritty electronics thing, being willing to overlook the sensitive considerations that you should be making when you're designing or borrowing or being inspired by, for the
Right.
sake of the dollar, I guess.
Yeah, and even if it's completely legal, I mean, I don't know. I'm of the belief that legality has nothing to do with morality. I think a good legal system follows a good sense of morality, but that's not always the case.
And
Um,
yeah,
and the details of that can be a conversation for another time. But just because I could totally rip off your Gale, Brian,
Yeah.
and again in the fantastical sense of the word, of in theory, if I was smart enough to, I could. That's giving me a lot of credit here, but just because I could, it would be really terrible of me to just do that to you. Let's say if
Sure.
if I'm from a company that brings in $10 million a year, and I could do it, and I could just make no mention of you whatsoever and market. Oh, this is my brand new thing I've been working on for years, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's a total jerk move to
well,
undercut
that's
you.
that's just
Yeah.
unethical. I think that's kind of past selling out and just getting into straight unethical.
Well, I think it's selling out because you're doing it for the money. You're doing it for the notoriety. You're doing it for the things that when someone says so and so sold out, the assumption is that that person is going after this certain attainable
But
goal,
selling
money,
out for
fame,
money,
etc.
like as an artist, isn't necessarily unethical. In fact, it rarely, in my opinion, is. I mean, if you want to say that if you sell your music to a commercial to be used in a commercial, there's nothing unethical about that. It's just it is chasing the money, but there's no, hopefully, no theft. There's no hurting of anybody. Hopefully,
Right.
there's no like demeaning of any group of people. And those are the things like when I think that people sell out, and I think that people rarely truly sell out, indie bands at least. I feel like it's, are you doing harm? And if you're just looking to make, your money, I don't think you're probably not doing any harm. If you're stealing somebody's idea, if you're stealing somebody's product and their years of hard work, and then trying to pawn it off as your years of hard work, like if you just straight up take that DIY pedal board schematic for an amp in a box, and then you make your own and pretend that you spent years, that's um that's just lying. So I just feel like there's a difference between
Yeah.
lying.
Lying is not
I
illegal
mean
though,
I mean
in a lot of
yeah, it's
cases.
not. But it doesn't, but I think
Yeah.
that in the acceptable behavior in the society that we've created, it's it's not acceptable typically to lie to sell product. I mean, and people do it like
So
they're like, it's in some very small circles is considered improper, but I think that by and large, if you ask a child is lying okay, they're going to say no, even though they do it all the time.
right.
Yeah.
So I think where we're at is I would put that in the classification of selling out. You wouldn't, but I think we all can agree that that's super screwed up, and that we don't like that, and that we're willing to put our money where our mouths are in terms of what companies we're willing to buy from and what companies that we refuse to represent
Totally.
with our boards.
Totally. And it's like unfortunate that, like, I don't know, this is what I always come back to when I think about this topic, which is I'm not going to go out and like spend my time bad mouthing and utilizing like sort of my understanding of what's behind the scenes to like educate people, and maybe that's like what I should be doing. I don't know. And so like for most of the population who don't, you know, care or even understand where to start to begin to care, like they're never going to even know. They're going to be sort of sucked in by whatever, marketing or what they see
Yeah.
on Instagram or whatever, and they're going to buy that pedal, they're going to buy that amp, and it's going to sound good, and it's just they're not going to care. And that's really frustrating perspective to be coming from, because you wish that everyone knew and were making super informed decisions, because if that were the case, like those companies
It'd be-
wouldn't exist.
yeah,
Because most people are
most people
good.
are good, but I don't think enough people GAF.
Right. What does that stand for?
Give a frig. Give a frack.
For
Give a
fuzz
fuzz.
sake, could we
Give fuzz.
give a fuzz?
No, we
don't
haven't
give a
released this
fuzz.
episode yet,
I
and
don't
I have
give a
literally no idea
fuzz.
when we're going to release it, but I'm calling it the long bleep. Because Layla City from Tuna Tone and I had a nice conversation that involved some me quoting somebody saying something very bad. But yeah, I mean,
Ooh,
yeah, you'll like that one, Brian. But
cool.
I mean,
Looking
I am
forward
the
to it.
kind of person who, I mean, I literally sent an email to a company that supplied gear that we've discussed without name earlier in the episode.
Gear supply company.
Whoa,
It's
he did
fine.
it.
It's fine. And I basically sent them an email that asked, like, hey, as you know, a woman was very important to me is supporting and promoting women in the industry. And I just noticed that, you never really talk about women. You don't really sponsor very many women. You sponsor one woman, and you had this kind of nasty tweet about women on your page. And I was like, just please give me a reason to keep spending money with you. And I sent them that email, and Albert was the one who responded. Thank God for that company. And he was just so sweet and wonderful. And Albert and I are still friends to this day. But there are other things I know about that, like the whole situation. But long story, secret story short, um, that's always the kind of person that I've been. Is I want to spend money with people who have kind of the similar idea that I do. Not in all political realms. I don't care about that. I think it's weird to care about like just buying from people who have the exact same ideologies as you do. But I want to spend money with people who um, support diversity in the industry. And that's what's important to me personally. And everyone has that different thing that's important to them. And I think that um, if we continue to spend our money where our mouth is and where our hearts are, that I think that will foster a really great gear community in general.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were listening to this, this is an invitation for you to kind of jump in into. Not that we need to spend more time looking at pedals, because I know I spend way too much time doing it. But if you're getting, please join us in doing the research on what companies are on your board. And yeah, I mean, make your own decisions. We're not going to tell you what decisions to make, because I think that really comes down to what you believe. But I think a lot of people will be surprised, like when they look at the companies that are on their board, to find out some of the history of that, and they might be shocked. I mean, I've been in the place before. I've had a company represented on my pedal board, and I found some stuff out after I'd owned their stuff for a while, and I was just shocked. And I ended up selling all of it. I didn't want anything to do with them. So I mean, if that's where you're at, join us. Let's be informed. Let's be a part of this community and be more intentional with who we're supporting and why.
And with that,
Yeah, I think we should probably start. We've gone way longer than we normally go. This is
it
going to be
is.
an
We're
extra
not
long
going to cut it
episode.
into two. No, it's been a
Sorry.
great conversation, and yeah,
Oh, this has been wonderful. I could easily do
Yeah.
this for like another 3 hours.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
to everyone listening, thank you so much for listening. Please, don't just follow us on social. Please look into Spruce Effects. The Gale is a really incredible
Thank you.
pedal. It just seems so versatile. I haven't played with it yet. I'm probably gonna buy it really soon. I'm just waiting for some invoices to go through. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, and thank you for understanding. We're the Get Off Set podcast. I'm Emily.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Brian.
Yes.
Temporarily.
And we hope to hear from you all soon. Yeah.